When you think of musical geniuses who shaped the sound of rock and roll, Sir Paul McCartney stands tall, one of the greatest minds to ever pick up a bass or pen a melody. The legendary Beatles, Wings frontman, and solo icon has spent over 6 decades crafting timeless songs that became the soundtrack of our lives. But behind the fame, the packed stadiums, and the legacy lies something very personal. A devoted music fan who's never stopped admiring the artists that lit his creative fire. Today on Rock Fame Diaries, we're counting down the 6 artists that Paul McCartney loved the most, and how their influence shaped his iconic sound. Trust me, number 1 will surprise you. Number 6, the Everly Brothers. We begin not with flash and fire, but harmony. The Everly Brothers, Don and Phil, are the unsung architects of Paul McCartney's vocal style. Their seamless blend captivated a young Paul and John Lennon, setting the stage for what would become the Beatles' signature harmony-driven sound. In a 2014 BBC radio special, McCartney said, "The Everlys were the first to make me understand the magic of 2 voices becoming one." Paul reportedly spent hours as a teenager dissecting their hits like "Bye Bye Love" and "Wake Up Little Susie," practicing the exact way their voices shimmered together. He and John didn't just admire the Everlys, they tried to be them. And it worked. Songs like "From Me to You" and "Please Please Me" echo with Everly DNA. The influence even went beyond music. When Beatlemania exploded, McCartney personally reached out to Don Everly for advice on handling fame. Number 5, Little Richard. Before Paul McCartney became the voice behind "Maybe I'm Amazed," he was a Liverpool teen wrecking his vocal cords trying to scream like Little Richard. This wasn't just influence, it was obsession. Paul worshipped Little Richard, mimicking his raw, primal scream until his voice went hoarse. As he later admitted to Rolling Stone, there was something so liberating about how he let go. That liberation exploded into life when the Beatles opened for Little Richard in Hamburg in 1962. Paul was so nervous, he nearly got sick. But Richard saw something in him, showing Paul his piano techniques and telling him, "Honey, you gotta hit those keys like you're punching your worst enemy." That intensity left a mark. You hear it every time McCartney belts out, "I'm down, oh darling," or "Helter Skelter." That shrieking howl. Straight from Richard's school of rock. Number 4, Chuck Berry. You can't talk rock and roll without Chuck Berry. And Paul McCartney wouldn't even try. Paul once admitted, "Chuck's the only guy I'd say might be better than me at storytelling and song." That storytelling left its mark. At just 14, Paul was captivated by "Roll Over Beethoven." He reportedly wrote out Berry's lyrics by hand, analyzing how every line built a story. He didn't just want to write songs, he wanted to write like Berry. And that's exactly what he did. From Eleanor Rigby to Penny Lane, Paul wove vivid character sketches into his lyrics, just like Chuck did. And it wasn't just songwriting. Chuck's guitar-driven rhythms inspired Paul's melodic bass style, crafting that rolling, counterpoint groove we hear on so many Beatles tracks. When they finally met in 1972, Berry was stunned that Paul could quote lyrics from his obscure tracks. "The Beatle knows my catalog better than I do," he reportedly told his manager. That's love. Number 3, The Beach Boys. Next up, The Beach Boys. A band often labeled rivals of the Beatles, but for Paul, it was pure admiration. When Brian Wilson released Pet Sounds in 1966, Paul was blown away. He reportedly listened to God Only Knows over 100 times in a row, declaring it the greatest song ever written. It was more than just love for harmonies. Paul studied their chord progressions and arrangements with scientific precision. The Beach Boys, especially Brian Wilson, didn't just impress him, they challenged him. Pet Sounds pushed Paul to new creative heights, inspiring tracks on Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. But that competition came with a cost. When Sgt. Pepper eclipsed Pet Sounds, Brian Wilson suffered a breakdown. Paul's assistant later revealed that Paul felt responsible and wondered if their friendly rivalry broke Brian. Still, the respect endured. From Because on Abbey Road to Wings Back to the Egg, that California magic stayed with Paul, proving that admiration often breeds the greatest innovation.
Number 2. Elvis Presley. Elvis is why I do what I do, McCartney once confessed in a quiet moment at Abbey Road.
Hearing Heartbreak Hotel for the first time in 1956 changed Paul's life. He went to school the next day with slicked back hair and a curled lip, trying to be Elvis.
But it wasn't just mimicry. Elvis taught Paul what it meant to be a performer, not just playing music, but owning the stage with swagger and charisma. That realization shaped the very persona McCartney would adopt in the Beatles and beyond. When the Beatles finally met Elvis at his Beverly Hills home in 1965, it was a surreal moment. The man who sparked their dreams was now a peer. But for Paul, Elvis would always be the king. Number 1. A surprising love, Radiohead. And now for the biggest surprise on this list, Paul McCartney's deep admiration for Radiohead.
Yes, you read that right. While many fans associate Paul with 60s legends, he's kept a close ear on modern music. According to insiders, McCartney has frequently praised Radiohead's experimental approach and sonic daring. He once reportedly told a friend, "They do what we tried to do on Revolver, but with today's tools." He's especially praised Kid A and In Rainbows for their textures and atmospheric depth, saying they challenge the listener in a way that's deeply satisfying.
In one lesser-known story, McCartney tried to get Thom Yorke to collaborate on a charity project, but Yorke declined. Paul wasn't bitter. In fact, he admired the integrity. "That's a true artist," he allegedly said. It just goes to show, even legends still look up to those who carry the flame forward.
So there you have it. 6 of the artists Paul McCartney loved most. From the primal scream of Little Richard to the lush harmonies of the Beach Boys. From Elvis' swagger to Radiohead's mystery, each of them left fingerprints on McCartney's musical DNA. It reminds us that even our idols have idols, and sometimes, the music that moves us comes from the very songs that moved them. Thanks for watching Rock Fame Diaries. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the mind of a music legend, hit that subscribe button, drop a comment with your favorite Paul McCartney track, and stay tuned for more untold stories from the world of rock. Until next time, keep the volume up and the legends alive.